Millionaire CEO's unexpected discovery. Marcus Sterling's hands trembled as he pushed open the glass doors of St. Mary's General Hospital. The familiar scent of antiseptic, hitting him like a wave of memories he'd spent 3 years trying to forget. The man who commanded boardrooms and closed million-dollar deals with unwavering confidence now felt his knees weaken with each step down the sterile hallway. He wasn't here for business. He wasn't here as the CEO of Sterling Enterprises. He was here as the man who had walked away from the only woman he'd ever truly loved. The call from his assistant had been brief and devastating. "Sir, there's been an accident. Elena Rodriguez is in the hospital. Room 314. The phone had slipped from his fingers, clattering onto his mahogany desk as the weight of those words settled in his chest like lead. Elena Rodriguez, his Elena. The woman who had loved him before the billions, before the empire, before he became the cold, calculating businessman the world knew today. The woman he had pushed away because he thought love was a luxury he couldn't afford. A weakness that would destroy everything he'd built. Now as he approached room 314, Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs. He had rehearsed what he would say 1,000 times during the drive here. But every word had evaporated from his mind. Through the small window in the door, he caught his first glimpse of her in 3 years. Even in a hospital gown, with her dark hair spread across the pillow and her face pale from exhaustion, Elena was still the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. But as his eyes adjusted to the dim lighting of the room, Marcus felt the world shift beneath his feet. There, lined up in 3 small bassinets beside Elena's bed, were 3 tiny infants. His breath caught in his throat as he stepped closer, his businessman's mind frantically calculating dates and timelines. But it wasn't the math that made his hands shake. It was the unmistakable features staring back at him from those 3 perfect little faces, the same steel gray eyes that looked back at him from his mirror every morning, the same distinctive cleft in their tiny chins that had been passed down through generations of Sterling men, the same thick dark hair that crowned their small heads. "Oh my God," he whispered, his voice barely audible in the quiet room. Elena's eyes fluttered open at the sound, and when they focused on his face, every emotion he had buried for 3 years came flooding back. Love, regret, longing, and now an overwhelming sense of responsibility crashed over him like a tsunami. "Marcus?" Her voice was hoarse, uncertain, as if she couldn't quite believe he was real. He moved closer to her bed, his eyes darting between her face and the 3 sleeping babies. "Elena, when Sarah called me about the accident, I had to come, but these..." His voice trailed off as he gestured toward the bassinets. Elena's eyes filled with tears, and for a moment neither of them spoke. The weight of 3 years of silence, of words left unsaid, of a love that had never truly died, hung heavy in the air between them. "They're yours, Marcus," she whispered, and though he had already known, hearing her say it out loud felt like being struck by lightning. "Sophia, Gabriel, and Isabella. They're 6 months old. 6 months." Marcus did the math again, his mind racing back to that night 3.5 years ago, their last night together before their final devastating argument. The night he had told her that love was a distraction he couldn't afford, that building his empire required sacrifices she wouldn't understand. The night she had looked at him with tears streaming down her face and said, "When you realize that all the money in the world can't love you back, I hope you remember what you gave up." She had been pregnant when he walked away. She had been carrying his children, and he had been too blind, too proud, too terrified to see past his own ambition. "Why didn't you tell me?" The question escaped him like a broken prayer. Elena turned her head away, fresh tears spilling onto her pillow. "Would it have mattered? You made it clear that your company, your success, was more important than anything else. I wasn't going to trap you with an obligation you didn't want." The words hit him like physical blows. An obligation? She thought his children would be an obligation to him. What kind of man had he become, that the woman who knew him better than anyone believed he would see their children as a burden? Marcus sank into the chair beside her bed, his usual composure completely shattered. "Elena, I was an idiot. I was scared. I thought that if I let myself love you completely, if I put anything before the business, I would lose everything. My father lost everything because he trusted the wrong people, because he was too focused on being a good husband and father instead of protecting what was his. I swore I wouldn't make the same mistake. So you made a different one, Elena said softly, finally looking at him again. You chose loneliness over love, fear over faith. Before Marcus could respond, a soft whimpering came from one of the bassinets. Elena started to sit up, wincing in pain from her injuries, but Marcus was already on his feet. Let me, he said, his voice gentle in a way it hadn't been in years. He approached the bassinet marked Sophia, and carefully lifted the tiny girl into his arms. She was so small, so perfect, and as her gray eyes, his eyes, focused on his face, Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. This was his daughter, his child. A piece of his heart that he hadn't even known was missing. She has your stubborn streak, Elena said with a weak smile. She only stops crying when she gets exactly what she wants. Marcus laughed, a sound rusty from disuse. And the others? Gabriel is the peacemaker. He seems to sense when his sisters are upset and tries to comfort them. And Isabella? Elena's smile widened. Isabella is going to be trouble. She's already figured out how to charm everyone into giving her extra attention. As if on cue, the other two babies began to stir. And without hesitation, Marcus found himself moving between the bassinets, his businessman's efficiency translating surprisingly well to handling 3 infants. For the first time in years, his phone buzzed with messages and he didn't even glance at it. The accident, he said finally as the babies settled back to sleep. What happened? Elena's face darkened. A drunk driver ran a red light. I was coming home from Gabriel's doctor's appointment. He had a small fever earlier this week. The babies weren't hurt, thank God, but I have a concussion and some broken ribs. The doctors say I'll be fine, but... She hesitated, fresh tears welling in her eyes. But what? Marcus, I've been struggling. Raising triplets alone, working 2 jobs just to pay for daycare and rent. I love them more than life itself, but it's been so hard. And now, with the medical bills from this accident, I don't know how I'm going to manage. My insurance only covers so much and I can't work while I recover. Marcus felt another piece of his heartbreak. While he had been building his empire, acquiring companies and accumulating wealth he could never spend in a lifetime, the mother of his children had been struggling to put food on the table. His children, his flesh and blood, had been living in uncertainty while he slept in a penthouse and complained about which of his 7 cars to drive each day. Elena, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I want to help. I want to be part of their lives. I want to be part of your life. She shook her head and Marcus felt panic rise in his throat. I can't do this again, Marcus. I can't let myself hope that you've changed only to have you decide that fatherhood is too complicated for your lifestyle. These children need stability, not a part-time father who shows up when it's convenient. Then don't let me be a part-time father, Marcus said, moving his chair closer to her bed. Elena, these 3 years without you have been the most successful and most miserable of my life. I built everything I thought I wanted, and every night I went home to an empty penthouse and wondered what the hell it was all for. I told myself I was protecting my heart, my focus, my future, but I was just a coward. Elena studied his face, searching for the truth in his words. I love you, he continued, the words feeling rusty but right. I never stopped loving you and looking at them. He glanced at the 3 sleeping babies. Elena, I want to be their father. Not because I have to, not out of obligation, but because they're half of you and half of me, and they're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I want to teach Gabriel to be brave, and help Sophia channel that stubbornness into strength, and protect Isabella from boys like I used to be. Despite her tears, Elena laughed. Boys like you used to be? Arrogant, emotionally unavailable workaholic millionaires, absolutely. For the first time since he'd entered the room, Marcus saw hope flicker in Elena's eyes. But it was quickly replaced by uncertainty. Marcus, even if I believe that you've changed, and I'm not saying I do, how would this work? You live in a different world now. Private jets and boardroom meetings and charity galas. I'm a single mother who shops at thrift stores and hasn't had a vacation in 4 years. Marcus reached for her hand, relief flooding through him when she didn't pull away. Then let me bring you into my world. Not because I want to change you, but because I want to build a new world that has room for all of us. Elena, I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, but I would give every penny of it just to have you and our children in my life." Over the next several hours as Elena slept and recovered, Marcus stayed by the bedside taking shifts holding each of the babies. He called his assistant and canceled every meeting for the next week. He called his lawyer and started the process of setting up trust funds for each child. But most importantly, he called his mother, the woman who had raised him alone after his father's death, and told her she was a grandmother. When Elena woke up the next morning, she found Marcus asleep in the chair beside her bed, baby Isabella cradled against his chest. Both of them were snoring softly, and Elena couldn't help but smile at the sight of the mighty Marcus Sterling, CEO of Sterling Enterprises, completely undone by a 6-month-old baby. "Good morning," she whispered, not wanting to wake Isabella. Marcus's eyes opened immediately, and Elena was struck by how different he looked. The hard edges that had defined his face for years seemed softer somehow. The constant tension in his shoulders had relaxed. "Good morning, how are you feeling?" "Better. Marcus, I've been thinking about what you said yesterday." He tensed, preparing himself for rejection, but Elena surprised him. "I want to believe you. I want to believe that you've changed, that you're ready to be the father our children deserve. But I need to see it, not just hear it. Words are easy, Marcus. It's actions that matter." Marcus nodded, understanding completely. "What do you need from me?" "Time. Consistency. Proof that this isn't just novelty or guilt talking. These babies need someone who will be there for scraped knees and homework help and teenage heartbreak. They need a father who will choose them every single day, even when it's hard or inconvenient or scary." "Done," Marcus said without hesitation. "Elena, I will spend every day for the rest of my life proving to you and to them that they are my priority. Not the company, not the money, not anything else. Them and you." The challenges that followed tested Marcus in ways no boardroom battle ever had. Learning to change diapers while fielding calls from investors. Rescheduling a crucial merger meeting because Gabriel had an ear infection. Discovering that his penthouse, with its glass walls and sharp corners, was completely unsuitable for children. Within a month, Marcus had sold the penthouse and bought a house in Elena's neighborhood. Nothing too extravagant. Just a comfortable home with a big backyard and a nursery that could accommodate 3 cribs. He learned to make bottles at 3 a.m. and to sing lullabies in his rusty baritone voice. He discovered that his ruthless negotiation skills translated surprisingly well to getting Sophia to eat her vegetables. More importantly, he learned to court Elena all over again. Not with expensive gifts or grand gestures, but with small, consistent acts of love. Coffee in bed while he handled the morning feeding. A bouquet of daisies, her favorites, picked up on the way home from a client meeting. His undivided attention when she talked about her day, her dreams, her fears. It wasn't easy. Marcus had to rebuild Elena's trust brick by brick, prove day after day that he had truly changed. There were moments when the old Marcus threatened to surface, when a deal fell through because he had to leave early for Isabella's first steps, when he felt the familiar itch to put work before everything else. But then Gabriel would look up at him with those gray eyes so like his own and gurgle "Dada." Or Sophia would fall asleep on his chest after a long day of teething. Or Isabella would clap her hands in delight when she saw him walk through the door, and Marcus would remember what really mattered. 6 months after that life-changing day in the hospital, Marcus got down on one knee in the living room of their house while all 3 babies watched from their high chairs. "Elena Rodriguez," he said, his voice steady but his hands shaking. "You are the love of my life, the mother of my children, and the reason I became a better man. Will you marry me?" This time, when Elena said yes through her tears, Marcus knew he had truly won the only prize that mattered. 2 years later, Sterling Enterprises remained highly successful, but Marcus had restructured his entire approach to leadership. He hired a strong management team, delegated responsibilities, and made it clear that family came first. His employees, initially skeptical of their CEO's new priorities, found that a happier Marcus was actually a more effective leader. The triplets, now toddlers, had transformed both their parents in ways neither could have imagined. Gabriel had indeed grown into the peacemaker of the family, always offering his toys to his sisters when they cried. Sophia's stubbornness had evolved into fierce determination, She was walking before her siblings and had already shown signs of inheriting her father's business acumen by negotiating for extra cookies by offering to share with her brother and sister. Isabella had become the family entertainer, charming everyone from the grocery store clerk to Marcus's business partners with her infectious giggle and bright personality. Marcus often reflected on how close he had come to missing it all. If Elena hadn't been in that accident, if he hadn't gotten that call, he might have continued building his empire in isolation, never knowing that the greatest success of his life was waiting for him in a hospital room. As he tucked his children into their beds each night, Marcus whispered the same promise he had made to Elena in that hospital room. Daddy chooses you. Every single day for the rest of my life, Daddy chooses you. The millionaire CEO, who had once thought love was a weakness, had learned that it was actually the source of his greatest strength. Money could buy many things, but it couldn't buy the sound of his children's laughter, the warmth of Elena's hand in his, or the deep satisfaction of knowing that he was exactly where he belonged. In the end, Marcus Sterling had built an empire, but his true legacy lived in 3 pairs of gray eyes and 1 woman's renewed faith in love. He had learned that the most successful people aren't those who accumulate the most wealth, but those who invest in what matters most. And sometimes, the best investment you can make is in the love you almost let slip away. Thank you for watching this emotional journey of love, redemption, and the power of second chances. What did you think of Marcus's transformation? Have you ever had to choose between success and love? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I love hearing from you all. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like and share it with someone who believes in the power of love to change lives. And don't forget to subscribe to Trillionaire in Love for more inspiring stories about love conquering all odds. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story that might just change your perspective on what truly matters in life. What story should I tell next? Let me know in the comments and I'll see you in the next video. Remember, love always wins.